Hello and welcome to Investing Bros. You are tuned into the first crypto news show of the trading day. I'm live weekdays, every weekday at 9 a.m. So you are in good hands here. Man, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of news. There's a lot of movement on the charts. And there might even be something you're not seeing. I want to bring you the Bitcoin chart here right off the bat just to show you kind of what is on my mind, how I'm interpreting it. Because our TA video for Investing Bros is actually not going out today. We should return to regularly scheduled TA videos going out the rest of the week. But Tim is a dad of a little baby Brody, and little baby Brody had a rough night last night apparently. So that TA video was not possible. So I'm going to do my best to try to fill in those gaps. I'm not going to go as exhaustive as Tim would, but I'm going to make sure that not to leave you high and dry here. I wouldn't want to do that as a bro. All right, well, as you can see here, I've got this very simple regression trend drawn in from December 5th. If you're a bro and you've been watching, then you're very familiar with this trend. I've had it drawn for a little while. We did go ahead and break down through it. And not only did we print a wick like we did back here on early January on the 3rd, and then late December on the 29th, and then also back here in mid-December and then early December, we actually went ahead and printed candlesticks there. So that is, bearish. And, now we're back up and we've printed several candlesticks on the 4-hour above this downtrending line of support. So that is generally, seen as midterm bullish, right, for me. However, I would say that this midline of the Bollinger Band, you can see how volatile this is, guys. Look, I don't think I've ever seen a Bollinger Band midline take a degree turn like that. We're not up above it yet, right? That's going to be major resistance, and you can see that we've only barely wicked into that here for the Bitcoin price on the 4-hour, getting up above that 42.9, really that $43,000 per coin. Resistance level is going to be key. We haven't done it yet. There's a reason you've seen consolidation around this level, a drop down because of recognition of a failure to penetrate through, a drop down, and then a resumption to go ahead and take another shot at 43,000. I'm not feeling it. I'm thinking if we were gonna bounce off of this level here at 41,700 and resume, kind of this post Bitcoin spot ETF acceptance bull run, that would have been done in stride, right? That would have been quite decisive and a strong move to the upside as buyers say, okay, the dip's lower, right? We've tested lower, we found our levels, we're going to move higher. That would have happened. That did not happen. So what does that mean? Well, I think that we have more room to the downside, and I have a level drawn, but the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention is because I don't want you to fall into a potential bull trap, right? Because what is being seen here is three higher lows, right? You have a higher low here. You have a low here. You have a higher low wick, and then a higher low put in by these candlesticks. So that's bullish, right? Textbook bullish. However, a couple of the other indicators here showing me that this may not be quite over for Bitcoin. But is it all going to happen all at once? No, I think, guys, we might be in for a very, very, very sideways week this week, and then that dump down to 38K is kind of where I'm thinking could happen as late as like Monday or Tuesday of next week, right? Let me kind of draw that possibility out for you, just so you're tracking. So here we are, the Bollinger Band midline. Whether or not that gets crossed it's a big deal. But even if we do cross it to the upside, that still doesn't mean we're going higher decisively, right? It could, right? But that's just one of the parameters that I'm kind of watching to go ahead and enter a new long, right? So right now, my bias is I'm not going to take a position quite yet, a new leverage position quite yet. However, if I was, my bias would definitely be to the downside right now. So let me show you what I mean. I'm mostly predicting kind of sideways movement this week because if you take a look here at the MACD, we are getting a bull cross, and that's bullish, right? So you got these higher lows and a bull cross on the MACD on the 4-hour, right? This isn't like the 15 or the 30 minute or the 5 minute. This is the 4 hour. So a bull cross here is quite significant. Bulls are going to be paying attention to that. However, if we got sideways movement, this bull cross would kind of resolve, fizzle out, and then even a test lower would kind of crisscross that back over the week. This isn't going to happen today. It's not going to happen immediately. But that would kind of fizzle out that bullish indication of the MACD line cross. Now, you're also seeing green histograms print, right? And after a big sell-off like this and then sideways movement, of course, you're gonna see those green histograms. The Ichimoku kind of showing, hey, this is in a bearish zone, right? The bulls are definitely more in control than the bears. I'm sorry, the bears are more in control than the bulls, but it isn't quite in that bearish zone, so to speak, at least on the 4 hour. So I think all of these contradicting indicators really, really point to one thing, which is that we're just going to get sideways movement, right, until the end of the week, and then we get a nice dump, right, down to 38K, and, we'll bounce. We might even test a little lower to scare everybody out, and then, probably a resumption higher, a test sideways, and then a move higher. My prediction becomes less precise, less accurate the further in time we get, of course, something to keep in mind. But overall, this is kind of what makes sense to me based on the indicators we're seeing. But I'm not the only technical analyst. Of course, TA Tim will be putting out a TA video tomorrow at 8:30, so you want to be tuned in for that. And then also right after this video, Piper Academy will be putting out a live stream where they pretty much do TA the entire time. So that's another TA kind of chartist that I'm really into. Really, really like what they do over there at Piper Academy. Chances are, if you're watching, you've heard Piper. We collaborate with him a lot. In fact, he is a bro. So with that said, I want to go ahead and zoom out to the daily chart here for Bitcoin and show you guys a little bit more context, right? So this is the daily chart for Bitcoin. The red histograms are accelerating. Okay, so that's different from the 4 hour. Okay, Ichimoku is in the bullish zone, in the bullish kind of phase, but it is headed pretty quickly down to that zero line, right? Which is not good, which is kind of bearish. So overall, guys, I'm expecting more movement to the downside. 38K is kind of that level that I'm thinking we may see a bottom and then a resumption higher. Because there are still a lot of buyers in Bitcoin, right? But those buyers are timid because they're right now on the sidelines because strong hands are holding their Bitcoin because they're still in profit quite a bit, right? However, there's a lot of new money that got in, a lot of new kind of Bitcoin buyers that got in these levels here, and even some in these levels here, and also in levels here, and they're saying to themselves, either I'm now at a loss, or am I even going to make a profit on this trade? I've been sitting here watching my chart watching my phone for the first time, trading Bitcoin or investing Bitcoin, right? And now I'm not even sure I'm going to make a profit on it. I was up a lot over here. I was up here. I was up a lot back on the 9th, and that was great. I was buying shots at the bar for all my friends. But now I'm not even sure if I'm going to make a profit. I better go ahead and sell now, right? So that's what's led to a lot of this downward movement. Also, the Vanguard story, and just a general rotation into Ethereum has also been a bearish narrative for Bitcoin. But ultimately, I think that's all going to settle down kind of around 38,000, where real Bitcoin bulls, sophisticated money is going to come in and say, okay, this is a much more attractive place to go ahead and get in. You've got this candlestick support back here from this consolidation phase before the big breakout. I think this is going to be a compelling zone to go ahead and buy back in, and that's at 38,000. However, could it go lower? Absolutely, it could go lower from there. 31,000 is another level that folks are finding pretty alluring as well. So it makes sense to me that we're not seeing a ton of capital being deployed right here, right now. But ultimately, it's just going to be something that we continue to watch and we continue to trade. So that's Bitcoin. But there's another story going on here. And on my thumbnail, I've got Chainlink as well, because Chainlink is having quite a day here. You can see the stark difference on the daily indicators here. On the daily chart, you can see green histograms printing to the upside, MACD lines pointing up and to the right. And you're also seeing the price action penetrate up through midline of the Bollinger Band there. So stark difference between Bitcoin and Chainlink this morning. Down on the 4-hour for Chainlink, you're also seeing it kind of hug the top line of the Bollinger Band. So very bullish there for Chainlink as it goes ahead and on the 4-hour gets up back into that bullish zone on the Ichimoku. So the bulls are in control for Chainlink as of now. And on the 4-hour, of course, you're getting, pretty consistently accelerating green histograms, which is nice to see. MACD lines pointing up and to the right. So Chainlink, definitely the winner here. I'm sure there's coins that are actually doing better than, let's check it out. Let's go to the bubbles. You want the bubbles? I'm going to give you the bubble. Okay, Hex and Pulse Chain. Those are somewhat disregardable in my opinion. Maybe you disagree. Let me know in the chat. Why, are you a big fan of Pulse Chain and Hex? Let me know. But the case. So outside of that ecosystem, you're really seeing mostly red, with a couple of exceptions. Injective up 3%, Sui up 10%, and Chainlink up 4.7% on this on the bubble sheet. So there's some places to have your capital, to have your wealth right now that is moving to the upside. BNB actually not having a terrible day either, up 4%. But for the most part, you're seeing a sea of red with some exceptions. So that's going to be kind of your crypto snapshot, if you will. Now we're reaching the halfway mark of the video. I'm going to go ahead of the stream. I'm going to go ahead and kind of slow it down a little bit. Take a step back. We're going to look at the comments and we're going to get into the news. That is going to be kind of the preliminary news for this week, kind of setting the tone. Is this going to be a bullish or bearish week? Guys, I'm thinking it's probably going to be sideways, as I've illustrated here on the charts, sideways, but also, kind of having traders, having investors kind of biting their nails on the sidelines, waiting to see if this baby goes ahead and dumps down to 38, which does look likely in my opinion. But we'll have, more charts, more analysis over at Piper Academy after this video. It goes live at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you're more than welcome to go over there. But let's go ahead and check out the chat here. Mr. J was the first in chat saying, morning. You got to love it. Nancy Croy, not too far behind, saying, good morning, bros. And Cool CJ 1948-7 said, good morning as well. So lots of chatter in the chat. Love to see it. Alex O as well. Dylan Martinez. Crux of Crypto. Man, I had a really nice, fruitful conversation with Crux over the weekend. He said, start your week off great, everyone. So hoping that you guys have a great weekend, just like a great week, just like I do. So 4 billion of the last dip were sells at a loss. There's some good data from Overcome. Thank you so much, Overcome, for contributing here. Let's see. FTX collapse desensitized me. Yes. I love that. T-Shroom, or XRP said, T-Shroom, what do you think the housing numbers will be this week? That's a good question. To be honest, so I cover the housing numbers, and when we get to that print, I'm sure that I'll have a lot more thoughts, but right now that's not at the forefront of my mind. Generally, I would say that housing is proving to be pretty resilient, right? Those shelter numbers are proving to be pretty resilient. However, those are the ones that and used cars are. I think I heard that it was like 80% of what is left in inflation is what's 80% is what's keeping inflation levels somewhat elevated, or at least elevated above that 2% target for the Fed. So if shelter can play along here, as oil has done, as the American consumer has done, then we should be able to get inflation back down to that target 2% rate before the end of the year. But it's going to take some doing. It's going to take more weakness and softening from a housing market that we're just continuing to see show signs of strength. So we shall see. There's still plenty of money out there buying real estate and willing to go into real estate. So we'll see. We'll have to see. But good question there. XRP A11Y. That's a very, very specific name there. Drew P said, be in Naples soon, but can't go to Bitcoin Bay. Oh, that's too bad. So Drew P, of course, kind of referring to the Bitcoin Day that Tim and I will be attending again. It's coming up real quick. It's this week. So January 20th, Tim and I will be down there in Naples. Believe you can still buy your tickets. You can click the link in the description to do just that. All right, well, before we go ahead and get into the chat here, into the news, I want to bring to your attention that our tax sponsor is Decrypted.tax. Guys, if you've been trading or investing in crypto in 2023, your tax guy that you have now, tax gal that you have now, may find it just too complicated to work with you because they've never handled crypto before, or they may say they've handled crypto before, or that they're competent in crypto handling. You need to doubt that, right? You need to question that. But there is no question that Decrypted.tax is ready to handle your crypto taxes. Go ahead and shoot over there to Decrypted.tax and get your free 60-minute consultation with Ernest. Ernest is a great guy. We had him on the show last week. He told a lot of stories about these exotic tax situations that people have been in, that he's been able to help them out. He's genuinely is a super solid guy. Tim and I both do our taxes with him, and so crypto taxes. Tax season is upon us. Go ahead and check that out. Decrypted.tax. Tell them that the Investing Bros sent you in that free consultation. All right, let's go ahead and jump into something pretty funny here. I don't want to bash her too much because there's plenty of people that are going to be doing that today. But Samantha Leduc, I don't know if that's French. Sounds French. But she's an analyst over a curious cross-asset analyst over at Bloomberg, CNBC, and Yahoo Finance. So I guess she's a humbled contributor. Okay, and a persistent trader on Chase. Okay, so she's an influencer in kind of the TradFi space. She went on a very long diatribe about Bitcoin, kind of showing that she's newer to the space, and but she's very knowledgeable about TradFi. And that's fine. But in one of the replies to the chat, and this was one of the first things I saw this morning, kind of scrolling through Twitter, she said, "Interesting, serious question. If one Bitcoin is sold in units of sats, and there are over 2 quadrillion of those, how can they claim scarcity? Lack of dilution, hedge against inflation, debasement. This would seem to be common knowledge and, well, math." So Samantha, getting a little embarrassed, perhaps, of her words here. Of course, scarcity doesn't have anything to do with how much something can fractionalize. Scarcity has to do with how many of it there is total, right? So if I cut a pie into portions, right, those portions are not new pies. Those portions are still fractions of the overall pie. You still have one pie at the end of the day. Yes, it's cut into pieces, and more people can enjoy that pie, so to speak, but it's still one pie, and Samantha kind of missing that. So, again, I'm sure this is a simple mistake. Maybe she didn't have her coffee or whatever it is, but, this was worth bringing to you all's attention. So be nice, but it's funny. It is funny. Oh, my dogs are chiming in here, so we might hear a little more from them here. I'm not sure. But let's go ahead and keep moving on. We've got a video here from Vanguard's CEO. Of course, Vanguard famously last week kind of threw a wet blanket on the otherwise very bullish market for Bitcoin, seeing movement to the upside, and then not so much, as you all saw in the charts. But Vanguard was kind of, in my opinion, partially responsible for that sell-off that we saw. And now the CEO now for Vanguard's coming out and he's speaking out. This is about 50 seconds long. Let's take a look.
And there's been a lot of discussion over the past few weeks about potentially a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency ETFs. Are you exploring it? Do you plan to open one? Are you going to apply to open one? And what do you think of a Bitcoin ETF as an investment tool for your customers?
Tyler, we won't be pursuing a Bitcoin ETF. Just like we don't use gold as an asset class for our clients. So it's not that people can't invest in there. We just look at asset classes for, what belongs in a long-term portfolio, what has intrinsic value, has cash flows to it. And those are the asset classes we steer people towards. And so we don't go towards Bitcoin or gold or any other of those stable assets.
Mm-hmm. So kind of showing their cards over there at Vanguard, showing what their priorities are. This has a little bit of a Jamie Dimon feel to me, that they're speaking out of one side of their mouth, but they have plans to engage in this market in a different way than maybe they're kind of projecting to the public. So that's one thing that kind of rings pretty true for me when taking a look at this video of the CEO of Vanguard, of course. Vanguard, kind of coming out last week saying they will not allow their clients to buy the Bitcoin spot ETF, which is pretty interesting. So let's keep moving, though, here. We've got a new commercial from BlackRock, and it's all the rage. And for those of you who've already seen it, don't worry, I'm not going to show the whole thing, but here it is.
Adoption has significantly accelerated over the past decade, with profound implications for the future of finance. Bitcoin is the original cryptocurrency to gain global adoption and has continued to maintain its dominance despite thousands of others coming into existence. Remove operational burdens associated with trading and holding Bitcoin directly.
So anyway, I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it's a snooze fest, right? And that's kind of the meme around this new BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF advertisement. However, what's important to remember here is that people with a lot of money in their 401ks are not like you and me. They're not like crypto degens, so to speak. Not that you're necessarily a degenerate. I'm not a degenerate either, right? But they would see us as that, right? People with these very, very swelled 401ks, these are the kinds of advertisements, these are the kinds of messaging that they will be convinced by, and more importantly, their financial advisors, their fiduciaries are going to be convinced by. Why? Because they need a nice, slow-paced explanation of what Bitcoin even really is, right? And this is just kind of breaking down, Bitcoin, it's convenient. It's quality, right? So these are this is a messaging tool that's clearly aimed at folks who are not even really remotely educated on the value of blockchain in general, much less a specific one of Bitcoin. So while it would put you and I to sleep because it's things that we already know, it's actually awakening perhaps trillions of dollars of new money that's going to be pouring into these spot ETFs. So there's going to be a slower trickle throughout the rest of 2024. I don't think that we're out of the heavy volatility phase quite yet. I think that we're going to go down, as I said in the technical analysis segment, we're going to go down and test some other lows, perhaps 38, perhaps 31. But ultimately, I think we're going to see a lot of up and to the right for the rest of the year, especially moving into mid-April at that halving date for Bitcoin. But ultimately, we need to see more of these types of ads. While they're not going to dazzle you and I, perhaps they are going to be kind of the tools that are needed to bring in that next 100, 500 billion investment. So welcome the boring. And there is an article out there from Inside Bitcoins saying it's so boring, it's brilliant, right? And it's true. That's really what it is. It's being targeted at wealthy boomers, as I've kind of said here. And that is how you unlock that next $500 billion to pour into Bitcoin before the end of Q3. So that's kind of how that story ends up going. I've got another one here for you. This is from the X account, the spread thread. It's pretty interesting. This is kind of a breakdown of the yield curve. So this is a ratio. The blue line is a ratio of the 2-year to the 10-year curve, and then the orange line is the 2-year Treasury yield. And as you'll notice, and then another important thing about this chart is those gray vertical lines are recessions, right? So as you'll see, the orange line descends, right? Those Treasury yields descend kind of at the end of a recession, right? And then they continue to come down, both back here in the early 1990s, and then in 2000, and then here in the 2008 housing crisis. That was a prolonged and pretty devastating recession, and that also had those rates coming down. But at the same time, the ratio of the yield curve, which is basically manifested in the yield curve, the 2-year to the 10-year. There's other ways to analyze that, but this account is doing it for the 2-year to the 10-year. That ratio actually increases, right? And that's illustrated by the blue line. So that increases during a recession, while the 2-year Treasury yield goes ahead and decelerates, right? So that moves to the downside. Well, right now, in the present moment, we're kind of seeing a reversal of this here, illustrated in the most recent moves. The convergence of these two indicators are kind of they're playing out the pattern, right? That, and you see they come in touch. Here they didn't fully touch, but they resolved that moving together, right? And now they're diverging, right? So the convergence has mostly stopped. The divergence has begun. And what does that mean? Well, that means that, ultimately the Fed is going to interpret this as the bond market telling it, hey, we want these cuts, right? We want these cuts, and we're anticipating cuts. However, what that means is that the recession that comes with these vertical lines, right? Because this divergence has precluded both times the recessions, right? That has been the necessary environment for a recession. It induces a recession, the divergence of these two indicators. There's other things that induce a recession too, but this is kind of an indicator of that. So you might ask the question, well, how does rate cutting equal recession? I've been told, that the rate cuts are bullish. It increases liquidity into capital markets and to risk asset markets. It does. A rate cut is bullish. Don't let anybody tell you that a rate cut is bearish. The reason why there's kind of these arguments out there about rate cuts being bearish is that they're not. Rate cuts are not bearish. They are bullish for risk assets. More money equals more risk tolerance, right? So they're in higher prices for assets, whether it be the S&P or Bitcoin. However, it's historically, as we've seen on this chart, it can induce and oftentimes does induce a recession, right? But it's actually the cuts that indicate to the market the Fed is doing something that they don't, because they don't like something in the economy, right? And the bond markets move accordingly, and assets do tend to sell off, and a recession is induced, right? However, it's usually the last cut, right? It's the first, or another way, it's the first pause that signals, okay, now the full Fed cycle has reached its conclusion. It's resolved, right? The whole reason for raising rates it has been completely cured. In this case, it was, it seemed to me mostly supply chain induced high inflation that has been cured by the monetary policy movements, right, from the Fed. And now we can move back into a pretty normalized, non-monetary interventionalist economic environment. And that's what we're seeing. So T-Shroom, you did a great job of explaining something I don't really care about, and it is too complicated for me to understand. I appreciate it. Let me put it into words that can help you with your actual portfolio. Recession could be coming, right? Recession could be coming, and that does not necessarily mean Bitcoin go down, right? Gold and Bitcoin, real estate and bonds are actually recession safe havens. Now, Bitcoin hasn't been tested as such. I would argue Bitcoin hasn't been through very many recessions. In fact, the only recession it's been in, because it was initiated in 2009, the only recession it's been in is actually the very brief pandemic recession, which most economists would argue is not enough data, and it's not good data or not reliable data to make any kind of investment decisions on purely. But ultimately, we could be headed for a recession. These lines seem to be indicating that, right? But that does mean, right, and putting it's kind of a chicken and the egg kind of argument here is like, did the recession come first and then the Fed reacts to that by cutting rates, or does the cutting of the rates initiate the recession, right? And, that's not something I'm going to try to figure out right now in this stream. That's not why I'm here. Ultimately, what this means is you need to be nimble. You need to be aware of this, and you need to be cautious. It doesn't mean sell Bitcoin, though. That's the thing. Bitcoin is the new gold as far as I'm concerned. And what do you do in times of recession? You go into quality. You go into as least risk as possible. Some people buy ammunition. Some people buy real estate. Some people buy gold. I think this cycle we're going to be seeing a lot of buying Bitcoin, as it does have that scarcity thesis, regardless of what Samantha Leduc, whether or not she can really understand that. It does have that scarcity thesis, right? And the value of which is what we all agree it to be. It doesn't have anything to do with whether or not, the underlying business like Walmart is selling more. It's not reliant on the retail consumer, right? It's reliant on, are people scared? Are people scared of a recession? They're going to buy more things that are scarce, and that value is not directly tied to the ebb and flows of the strength of an economy. Okay, so I've done the best that I can to try to explain that. This is an important signal, though. This isn't just something I'm just pulling up because it was flashy for today. This is important, right? And it's being brought to us again. If you want to learn more, you can take a look at the spread thread and check that out for more. Well, guys, I have been T Shroom, going over a little bit over time here, 9:31. Make sure you go ahead and check out Army Piper. I will be live over at Piper Academy. I will be live at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today with my trusty partner, T8, and we're going to be doing a lot more TA and answering and digesting some more of these questions and stories that I've brought to your attention today. But guys, stay hydrated, bros. Stay happy. Keep those stop losses tight, and I will see you at 3 p.m.
Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots that bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor of the TA. Shout it out loud on the PA. T-Shroom's news, got the word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots that bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros.